What's happening, everybody? trueeevil here, and today we're going to be checking out the lower difficulties in Etheria Restart. Now, if you don't know what got changed, I'm going to post a little clip of everything that got changed. Basically, a couple of these important bosses had their stats nerfed. The biggest ones, in my opinion, are going to be the Grim Pursuit, Threshold, and the Ember Trek. The Astarte boss in particular, a lot of people were stuck on, so we're going to see that boss and whether or not the change in difficulty really mattered, as well as was it the actual boss itself that was making it difficult, or was it the monthly effect? And in the first month, what was happening was a random stun, and now it's a poison. We're going to see how big of a difference the boss is with this new stat, because when I was watching a lot of people try to clear Astarte on that last day before reset, a lot of people weren't getting stuck on the boss per se because of the boss mechanics. What they were getting stuck on was, well, their healer got randomly stunned for 2 turns and then they lost because of that. Stuff like that. So we're going to see how big of a change this actually is. And then we're going to go to DokiDoki Inferno, see how much faster the clear time is now that the difficulty has been lowered. And as well as I'm going to be using gear from when I initially cleared Inferno the first time. So for example, my Rahu, when I cleared it, didn't have Coloss Guard, so what we're going to be doing is switching out the gear to what he was like when he did clear this. So going to have my stats a little bit lower than they actually are. Now, of course, the shell, when you get the triple pip, is a little bit stronger, but I'm going to be honest, the extra 30 defense and 5 speed is something that you can get off of sub stats. And since my sub stats are pretty bad, I'm not going to say that's a big make or break it on checking whether or not this is going to help those first clears in Inferno. And then the last thing we're going to check is Shadowflame Hoyan. So at the end, I'm going to analyze everything and say whether or not this nerf actually helped or just made everything stay the same. So without further ado, let's go to the Astarte boss. So what we're going to be looking at in this fight is whether or not this fight is difficult because of the boss itself or the monthly effect. Now, if you don't know what the monthly effect is, this month it is a poison effect where they lose their HP on their turn, which is quite significant of an HP loss, as you can see here. But, you know, is that as bad as a random stun that makes it so your character is stun locked for possibly 2 turns, depending on how everything goes? So, really need to be checking this, but personally, I do think this boss is much easier now after the nerfs, but you know, it is what it is. My original run of this was 16 minutes, so now we're going to see how much it is with it lowered. Now, I am not really going to show so much as each part of the fight, but I will talk about it at the beginning of each wave and see how much of a difference it is at the end. So let's just go straight to wave 2 here. Now, if you are struggling on this fight, what you need to do is focus on the red one. I'm just doing a little tidbit here as we check everything, but as you can see, this wave in particular was the one that got hit the most, and I would honestly say that just off the initial just like watching of that screen and seeing here, it is definitely much easier. Before, this was doing considerable amounts of damage, and now it seems pretty lackluster compared. So this is a huge nerf to this boss compared to what it was previously. Previously, I would say all of my characters would have half HP at this point, and now it feels like the boss basically does nothing. And since this is a boss that you farm monthly, it is nice that, well, it's not going to be difficult, but I would say that it would have not be difficult the second time around for a lot of people, or it'll eventually become easy, right? So what I think with this boss that it got nerfed a little bit too much for enjoyment, because you do want to have some challenge in your game, especially in a difficult game like this. Now, I understand like some people don't want to be challenged, but I like this game because it is challenging. And the biggest thing I would say is that, well, this boss wasn't difficult because of the boss itself. It was difficult because, the stun thing was absolutely annoying. Like, when you get your healer stunned or your main DPS stunned, you're pretty cooked for a little bit if you don't have, like, a really, really great way to take care of it instantly. And even then, because of how sporadic it felt, like, maybe your cleanser wasn't up and ready to really deal with that. It's not like an attack from the enemy, right? It just randomly happens. So we're going to check at the end and see how much lower the time is compared to 16 minutes. Now, we're getting to the end of the boss, and well, I would say this boss has been an absolute cakewalk compared to what it was previously, and I actually think the nerf wasn't justified because, well, I don't think this boss was hard because of the boss itself. I think it was just hard because of the stun. And let's see how much of a difference is. With this lower difficulty, it takes over 8 minutes away from the boss. So instead of this boss taking me 16 minutes, with the gear I used previously, it's under 8 minutes now, which is absolutely insane of a difference. And I do think that there needs to be a couple of longer challenging fights, and for the monthly, I do think having this one be difficult was good for the game. And right now it's just a press auto type deal, and I would say that I would have preferred that the poison be in the first month and then the stun be in the second month, because then people would actually have resources to deal with the stun instead of just being absolutely defeated by RNG. So in this respect, I get that a lot of people were complaining about Sharon and Astarte, but now, because of how the Ember Trek mode is, it kind of just makes it a chore instead of being a fun boss fight, which, I'm going to say this one is an L, but let's move on and see how big of a difference the other modes are, and we're going to go to DokiDoki next. Now here we're going to be checking DokiDoki Inferno to see how much easier it is to clear. Previously, my clear times are between 2 minutes and 30 seconds and 3 minutes, so we're going to see how quickly we can clear this game mode, and whether or not these changes actually did anything in terms of clear time and difficulty of the boss. Because what was happening with a lot of people when they did this on continuous and autoplay is that if Kazuyo did her CC skill 3 in a wrong place, say right before the very end of wave 1, then it made it so wave 2 absolutely went gangbusters on them and they were unable to clear. And that makes it awkward because since this is a farming stage, you do want to be able to do it on auto, because let's face it, I don't want to sit here and do Infernal DokiDoki for like 5 hours because, well, I have a life. So let's see how big of a difference this is going to be with clear times. And the most important thing with the clear time as well is that as a continuing player, what you want to be able to do is, well, use all of your stamina in a day. A lot of people have been complaining not so much about the difficulties in Infernos as much as, well, there's not enough time in the day to use your stamina. And I think this is a problem for the game because, well, if people who want to use all their stamina can't use their stamina, that means they're not paying for gems, right? Because if I have 20,000 gems on my account because I can't max stamina refresh, then why pay for gems, right? So that is definitely going to be a big thing. So let's see how big of a difference this is going to be. The previous times I was doing before the nerfs were 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And, Kazuyo bringing the noise right there, pretty nice. Getting that AoE, and pretty much going to be going gangbusters. Now, the stacks on this is incredibly noticeable. As you can see, none of my characters are even remotely taking that much damage. And previously, he did do considerably amount more. And what would happen sometimes on these clears is one character would get KO'd. Now, I think now there is no shot any characters get KO'd, but previously it didn't really matter if anyone got KO'd by him except Kazuo. If Kazuo got knocked out, then I would lose that run. But I was pretty much at a 100% win rate before this, and I think I've only failed this stage 3 times or something like that. And when I would like watch it at the beginning to make sure everything was going smoothly, it was just because, well, Kazuo got one-shotted. So let's see what the clear time is going to be after we deliver some noise. And believe me, boys, this guy is going to get gangbusters on, as you can see here. Rahu is bringing that juice, and he's trying to spin his little wheel thing, but he has no game, son. Gray is the one with the game here. Just kidding. Kazuo bringing the noise with the follow-up. And the big thing here, right, is it was 3 minutes and 23 seconds on the clear. This isn't really a good nerf, in my opinion. Now, it is a good nerf because it's going to make the entry into Inferno stages much easier for newer players. And that's going to be really important. A lot of people got discouraged because they weren't able to do this stage in particular, which should be most people's first things to farm on Inferno after you do Nico Nana, in my opinion, because Hell 4 drops the same type of modules as this stage, so I think farming Hell 4 for modules is fine, and I don't think you should go for final matrices until you farm Nico, because 12-12 is going to be much better for a lot of people than just having a final matrix randomly slotted in. So I do think that it's nicer now that Nico is going to be easier and Doki is going to be easier, so getting those initial shells so you can farm Inferno Terror and then the harder shell bosses and then Aurora and those is going to be easier, but it doesn't actually change how long it takes, in my opinion, which I think was the biggest thing. So in that regard, I think this is a W and an L at the same time. It's a W for new players for sure, and that's who they were tailoring this nerf to, in my opinion, but is an L for continuing players who don't have quad codex real mocha speed cleave team, right? This is still going to take 2 to 4 minutes a run, and if you're going to do this 100 times a day, that means that takes about, let me do it in the head, it would take about 5 hours or something like that. So yeah, that I think that's a little too much to be using your stamina on. And I do think there needs to be a way to like do this more. Like right now I'm stuck at only being able to do this 5 times. What I think would be a really nice change is that 1 starring is 10, 2 starring is 20, and 3 starring is 30. And what this is going to do is, 1, it's going to make it so people don't have to check their phone every 15 minutes to click the next auto battler, and 2, people are going to be using their gems more on stamina refreshes, which in return makes the game more money. So yeah, I would recommend this change, or doing some auto tickets, you know? It would be nice if we got like maybe a couple of auto tickets somehow that just make it so we clear the stage immediately, which is nice because, well, it means I can use my stamina every day. So without further ado, let's go to Shadowflame Hoyan. So now we're going to check Shadowflame Hoyan because for a lot of people, this is the most important thing that got nerfed because, well, Shadowflame Hoyan is hard and is making it so if you pretty much didn't build a dot team, you are Nat King cooked. And, you know, people don't like that. And this is the biggest thing I want to see, is because personally, the hardest thing with this boss is that it punishes me for the 2 characters I invested in, which is Rahu and Holden. As you can see here, let me click it. each stack reduces defense by 12%, and he does this pretty much every attack wave. See? Now we have 24%. And this wouldn't be the biggest deal in the world if it only affected, well, my defense. But because my characters are defense scaling, it also sort of does their attack too. So due to this, it makes it so I just can't do enough damage. And I don't think this really changes anything. I still think you need that dot team to be able to deal with this annoying boss. And the changes are just makes it so the dot team is better. And the main thing I'm also seeing from this is, well, if I just had a Lily, I probably would have beaten him because my Diding would actually be able to attack a lot. So I don't think this change actually helped the biggest factor, which is, well, I don't think there's enough gold lattices in this game because I can only realistically invest in 3 characters right now because I'm not buying lattices. And even if I was buying lattices, well, there's still not enough to really get these hyper specific characters that you really need if you don't have a Lily. So in that regard, I think these changes don't fix the underlying issue, which is that after the charter, we're not going to get enough gold lattices, I believe, to max 1 character a month. I think it came out to about 10 because not all the monthly challenges even give you a gold lattice. Right now, the Dazzler Pulse one gives you a gold one at the end, but the one that we got, they're all kind of similar, but you know, a lot of the other ones, the ending prize was a red shadow print. And I do think a lot of the issues in this game could be solved if, well, it was always a yellow lattice at the end every week, because then I could upgrade a character that could actually deal with this. And right now, what I have to be doing is I'm using all my purple lattices onto Fungus, and I'm not going to be able to farm this probably for another week and a half. It just really depends on how many purple lattices I get. So in that terms, I you know, make it so we can build SSRs. I don't think it's that difficult because I think people are going to pay more for pulls if we were able to invest in those characters. For example, I didn't pull Yelly, not because I didn't want to pull Yelly, but because, well, I don't have any gold lattices for her, and she's going to be unusable without golden lattices. And I think this is big, right? Because, say, Yelly's a LD character, so if I have no pulls, no crystals, I would need to spend probably, with just the estimated amount of how much the crystal's worth, probably around 200 to 240. Now, of course, you can get those top-up packs, so it's like 180 or something, but you're making it so people don't spend $150 to $180 on a character because they can't build it. And I think giving enough lattices so I can build a character will make me spend more money in the game and also enjoy the game more. So hopefully, instead of just trying to do these nerfs, they actually make it so we can build characters. Because right now, all of my defense based characters can't clear this, and that's all my DPSs, right? So there is a whole part of content that I'm hardwalled in, and because of how scarce the resources are, I will most likely not be able to clear this for another 2 weeks until I get the purple lattices I need for my dot team. So yeah, hopefully this was constructive criticism. I'm not trying to bash the game in any way. I really enjoy the game. It's just that, well, I'm just hardwalled at this content right here, and it doesn't feel particularly good because it's not because of units. It's because of, well, it is because of units. I don't have a Lily. So yeah, be kinder to us Lilyless players and give us a little bit more gold lattices. That's it.